Living life abroad is an adventure that not many make it through long term. As any long term expat will tell you, the key to living a happy life abroad is assimilation. It's taking off your ethnocentric lenses and opening your eyes, mind, and being to another way to live and experience life. For those brave enough to open themselves to assimilation in their newfound home, a wealth of beautiful gifts and new understandings are awaiting them. When we allow our new home to change us, we are allowing ourselves to learn, adapt, and evolve into something greater and more complete than we were before. I was lucky to be brave enough to let Japan in. No other country that I have lived in has so deeply influenced me and allowed me to see life from a completely different perspective. Japan is much unlike what most people believe it is from afar. Sure, it's beautiful, even inspirational in many ways. It's safe, people are amazing, but it's also uncompromising, systematic, formulaic, and incredibly conservative. Most new expats that I see come to Japan either immediately love it or immediately hate it and pack up and move home inside of 3 months. Japan wasn't always a smooth ride for me, but something inside me told me it was worth it. I should stick it out. It probably wasn't until after 3 years of living in Japan that something clicked. One day, I just suddenly got it. I had finally not only accepted all that Japan was, but I now understood it, and I allowed it to change the core of who I was. Now, 8 years later, this is what I've learned living in Japan.
So the first thing that I learned living in Japan is really how to develop and appreciate having a collective mentality. You know, being born in the United States and growing up in individualistic culture, I think, you know, most Western people, we really have a very kind of individualistic mind, a very individualistic way of seeing the world. We always feel like we're in competition with each other. You know, we're always wanting to be the best. Just, you know, we kind of just spend our lives growing up sort of seeing ourselves as individuals and thinking about how to advance ourselves. And that really kind of creates, I mean, it is healthy for competition and a lot of excellence can come from that. But I think what it also does is sort of, you know, causes a lot of disharmony in society. It probably causes, you know, a lot of arguing, a lot of people who are maybe, you know, quarreling and not getting along with one another. Whereas when I went to Japan, that was the first time I really saw a collective mentality in a society as a whole. I really gained a sense that people cared more about the advancement of the society as a whole, about the success of one another, about organizational success, about wanting to prop up those around you being more important than propping up yourself. And I think there's really a lot of beauty in that. When I first came to Japan and I saw how organized society was and how everybody was working towards, you know, common goals, it just sort of, everybody had this mentality like, look, we're in this together. We all have to go out and accomplish this together. And it's sort of really beautiful to see. You really see other people doing things and making choices and self-sacrificing, you know, parts of themselves, or maybe sacrificing some of their own advancement for the betterment of their company, for the betterment of their coworkers, for the betterment of their society. And they really take great pride in that. And that's really something beautiful that I learned. I think there is a lot of beauty in self-sacrifice. There is a lot of beauty in working towards collective goals. And there's a lot of beauty in, you know, just seeing things outside of yourself as being more important than maybe what you individually want to accomplish. And I really think that overall it brings people closer together. I think particularly in the workplace, when you're working with individuals who are sacrificing, you know, maybe some of their own aspirations, who are sacrificing maybe some of their own goals for the greater good, it builds a lot of camaraderie. It really makes people closer together, and it really forges great relationships. Working in Japan, I was able to create some really beautiful, deep friendships with a lot of coworkers. And this is just because of that collective mentality. So this is something in my years at Japan that really was a beautiful gift to have learned. So the second thing that I learned in Japan was the beauty of perfectionism. Now, I was already a perfectionist by nature, so this wasn't something really new to me, but what was different is just kind of going back to that collective mentality, is seeing all of society as a whole sort of come together and sort of adopt this kind of perfectionist mentality altogether. If you've ever had the opportunity to visit Japan, what you will see straight away is that everybody takes pride in their job and everybody does exactly what they're supposed to do to a very, very high standard. You know, you see when you fly on a Japanese airline, you know, the workers on the plane, you know, they're waving goodbye every time the plane goes out. They're bowing respectfully to the plane, to the passengers. You know, something as simple. I mean, if you go into a convenience store, you're going to get perfect service. If you go to the department store and somebody wraps a gift for you, they're going to do an absolute perfect job. They're going to walk you out to the threshold of the store. They're going to present your bag to you. They're going to bow respectfully to you as you leave the store. And this is sort of the, you know, perfectionist mentality. In Japan, it's really expected that if you have a job, if you have a role to do, you're expected to carry out that role to the absolute utmost of your ability, and you are expected to be in pursuit of perfection when you're doing that thing. And I think when everybody is coming together to do their best, whether you're mopping a floor, doing the absolute best job you can be, or whether you're a doctor or a lawyer or whatever it is, knowing that wherever you go in society, that you are going to get someone's best, that they're going to take pride in their work, that they're going to prioritize you as a customer to give you the best service and be proud of what they're doing as a person, it becomes really infectious. It becomes really inspiring. And I have seen a lot of non-Japanese people come to Japan. Some come and they can't handle it, and they're like, wow, you know, they're feeling like they're judged, and you know, they just don't want to have to meet that standard. And I've seen a lot of people come and they're completely absorbed into this perfectionist culture, and it makes them more detailed, it makes them hardworking, it makes them better at their jobs. So for me, already as a perfectionist, I loved it. I felt totally in my comfort zone, but it helped me to take it to another level. It helped me to become even more of a perfectionist, even more detail oriented. And I really appreciated this part of society. And then you kind of get spoiled by it. You leave Japan and you see people that just really aren't trying so hard, really aren't giving their best, and you feel very spoiled by just, you know, what you're able to receive in your daily life in Japan. So the third thing that I learned in Japan was really just how to lose my excuse orientation. I think a lot of Western people, I think particularly Americans, I would say, we sort of grow up with this excuse orientation where nothing is ever our fault. You know, we're never wrong. It's always because something is. Oh, I lost my job because I'm an alcoholic. I have this disease, or because of this or because of that, whatever excuse that you want to say. We always have a reason. We always have an excuse for why something is not our fault. And those kind of excuses, they're really pandered to. They're sort of pandered. We sort of pander to one another through social media. Media gets involved in it. And it just sort of creates a society where people don't take personal responsibility for their actions. People don't take personal responsibility like, hey, I had this bad outcome. And instead of blaming myself and trying to get better, I'm just going to blame everybody else and expect to have a handout, expect to have an easy road. Whereas Japan is a country that does not accept excuses. If your work starts at 8 a.m., you're at work at 8 a.m. And if you're not, there's no reason that is acceptable. You weren't late because your train was late. You were late because you were late. You weren't late because there was a typhoon or there was an earthquake. No, you were late to work because you were late. No other reason. There's no excuse that is acceptable. And everybody kind of guides themselves by that. And when you have a society that doesn't accept excuses, even sometimes when the excuse could be valued, and sometimes, it could be a valid reason. But when you have a society that in its totality does not accept excuses, what it does is it grows up very responsible individuals who take personal responsibility for their actions and for the outcomes that their actions provide. So people are very mature and they understand that their actions, there's words, they're very meaningful, and you have to work harder. you have to think about what could possibly go wrong in your daily life, and you have to take extra steps, you have to take extra measures to make sure that you are successful no matter what. And I think this is a very beautiful thing. I'm personally, after now of being more than 14 years in Asia, normally when I'm kind of talking and listening to Western people, I really cannot extend this excuse orientation. It's one of the things that gets on my nerves the most. And again, particularly when it comes to American people, it really gives me a headache just listening to all the reasons and all the excuses. And thankfully, Japan is not a place that accepts this excuse orientation. So for me, I really love having this be a part of my everyday life. And the last thing that I learned living in Japan is patience. Japan is a society where nothing happens quickly. Everything happens very slowly and very systematically. And by living there, coming from a Western country, we're very used to instant gratification. We want something and we want it straight away. And we don't like waiting. We like instant gratification. We want what we want and we want it right now. And Japan is very traditional, it's very conservative, and absolutely nothing is done quickly. Nothing is done quickly. Everything has its own process, everything has its own procedure, and everything takes time. And this really kind of forces you to kind of slow down your life, slow down your mind. And what I've noticed is in the early stages, it just taught me to be more patient. It taught me to be more comfortable to wait in a long line. Expect that something may take a couple days to happen. Something may take a few weeks to happen. Things aren't going to happen right away. That's sort of the early stages of what it provided me. But as time went on and as the years went on, what it also did, that patience, it helped to slow down my mind. And slowly I became more appreciative of a greater number of things. Maybe it's something as simple as slowing down to take in more of your surroundings on a daily basis, becoming more appreciative of nature and natural beauty, and just taking more time to sort of soak in and absorb the things around you. And that's kind of long-term what that patience gave me. And I've been very grateful for that, just being able to sort of step back from feeling like I'm rushing through life all the time and just be able to appreciate, things in my life on a daily basis that maybe I really didn't give time for in the past. So that's it for today's video, guys. What I'd really love to hear from you guys is if you've had a chance to go to Japan, if you've had a chance to live in Japan, or maybe even just to visit, what's something special that you experienced there? What's something that you felt that you learned from your trip, something that maybe inspired you during your trip? And if it wasn't Japan, if it was another place, I'd love to hear about an experience that you've had traveling or living abroad, no matter where it might have been. So yeah, I hope you guys are all doing okay out there with the situations going on, and best wishes to you guys. And until next time, guys, take it easy.